So, any questions what we covered in yesterday?
One question: this auto dend,
Yeah,
how much impact it's create on the log file, dev buff and dev log?
it will purge the. It will keep last 45 days data and purge the rest of the logs.
Okay, so means the database, how much the database size will go? 5 MB, 6 MB, 10 MB maximum?
Depends on how many devices are there, how many logs we are doing, all this stuff.
Is
Okay,
there any
because
setup for the day where we can define the day? It will purge this much of data.
No, it's a predefined actually 45 days, I think.
okay.
Okay, but every site you should enable that day end, otherwise you'll have problems.
Okay, okay.
Okay, now one second. Okay. So now, so let's go through the folder structure now. Just one second, let me disconnect it. The taskbar is not seen. Not where it is. So now, see, if you go to the folder structure of SmartL, there will be alert folder and assistant folder. This is a data folder. So if sometimes we modify and give a new devsys. So devsys is the database where all the configuration is done basically. So all the device related messages, protocol, everything defined on this devsys database. Then there is a dev buff. Dev buff is basically it will store the buffer. For example, we have interface with the HSIS system. Now HSIS system is down or the interface connection is broken. So now what happens? But in the meantime, Wishnet is sending all the check-in, check-out, everything. So it will store in this dev buff basically. There are a couple of tables there. So it will store the data there. As soon as the connection is established with the third party, it will push the data from the buffer. So sometimes what happens, maybe a PABX system you have implemented. Now the couple of days call is not recorded. Call is recorded, not recorded means call is not posted to the PMS. Then when you connect and see that maybe the Wishnet connection was broken or something. So now when you restart the interface or the connection is established, it will send all the data from the dev buff. So meantime, if any guest is checked out, it will go to the posting to the vacant room. So if sometime you want to avoid that one, so you can always replace the dev buff. So if you go to SmartL Pro 36 folder, there's a support folder, there's an original. So in the original, from original, you can take dev buff and dev log and replace always. But rest of the database, don't use it. Only dev buff, dev log only you can replace.
So before establishing the connection, we need to replace this file.
It depends. If you don't want the previous transaction to be gone to the PMS or the third party interface, then only you need to replace it. Otherwise, it's okay.
So tell
Especially
me
with
one
the
more thing.
Yeah, tell me.
Same case work in the SmartLink also in case of Opera linking.
In Opera, what we have done is we automatically clear whenever we restart. No, it will automatically clear the previous data and start.
Okay.
because we face many sites, there is issues that duplicate posting and all. So SmartLink always clear the data and only process a new one.
Okay.
So that is dev buff. Then dev dat is there. That is something related to license. All this stuff is storing in the dev dat. Then the dev log. Dev log is all the logs will be storing in this dev log database. Also, we will store it in a raw data like a notepad kind of files. Log files also we store it. So two places basically we can store the logs. Logs are very important in SmartL because we identify all the issues from the logs. So to enable the logs, it's very important. Whenever you add a device in the INI, make sure enable logging. There is a section there to enable the logging. So always enable that one so we can identify the issue and correct it. Then dev says, as I told, it will be all the messages will be related to devices and it will be on the dev says. Door log, door MDB will be using all the transaction related to the door for key cutting, key duplicate, all this will be storing this door.mdb file. Then there is a minibar MDB that will store the minibar posting related transaction. It will show. Then there is a PABX.mdb. That is the core MDB. It will show have all the masters related to the call accounting systems.
So I have one question here. It means suppose if any site is running only with the SmartLink, so can we remove all other databases apart from devlog, devdat, and devsys? No.
We have to keep all the. When you start, it will check for all the databases basically.
Okay.
Okay, but it may using some configuration. Even there is no call accounting, but in the PABX DB configuration file, some configuration we will be using basically. So all the database should be there.
Okay.
All the MDB files. So MDB has a limitation. It can grow up to maximum 1 GB. So after that, you may get that error, database getting full. That is especially happen with the devbuff and devlog because we have not enabled that day-end process. That's why the data is not getting patched. So it's clear related to the database. So in the data folder, you can see it. Okay, then there's an interface folder. So there are a couple of folders here. All the DLL, these are the core DLL application users. So one is the ComDev DLL. Most of the configuration in this DLL only. So whenever there is a change, you always put the latest ComDev DLL. Always, if you are copying from another site, also put the latest ComDev DLL and the interface exe. And there are other interface control.ocx module CA. These are the DLL it uses. So always use the latest DLL from the Setio app. Then here you can see a couple of folders also. One is the buffer. So sometimes we store the data in the buffer like in a file format. So you can see that data from here. Then we have the logs folder. Logs folder, you can see all the logs. If it is a device's communication through TCP/IP, you can see the logs related to TCP/IP from here. You see all the logs related to TCP/IP. And if it is row CDR, you can see all the CDR logs from here. So CDR means, for example, CDR is call detail recording. Okay, where we'll get the details of the incoming or outgoing, all this stuff of calls. So basically some PABX, they don't use any protocol to send the call details to us. They will ask us to establish a connection using serial port or TCP/IP. Then we will connect to that one and configure it. So I'll show you how to configure the CDR. If the PABX is sending the details to CDR in a separate port. Probably some PABX, they will give you two IP port. One is for the protocol communication like check-in, check-out, modification, line barring, all this stuff. then they will give you another IPN port only for CDR. So in that case, what you have to do is in the PMSI, you go there is a section available here called, one second, okay, CDR device. So you have to make it as true. Otherwise, you can make it as false. If it is not used, you can make it as false. Otherwise, you have to make it as CDR device. So here there is a configuration related to CDR is there. We have to define. Okay. So there is a section called CDR here where we define the IPN port or serial number of this one. In this section, basically we have to define ICM. ICM is the interspace communication method. So if you want to know what is the communication method number, so you go to the SmartL Manager system, ICM, then you can see what kind of method is there. So usually the CDR uses serial or this one, TCP/IP. So serial will be 1 and 8 is TCP/IP. So you have to define that one, whether it's serial or this one here, ICM number. Most of the time, rest of the configuration will be same until unless there is some specific related to that CDR. Okay. So then here you have an option CDR TCP. If it is a TCP address, you have to define here IP and the port number. If it is a serial port, you have to define the serial port here, communication port, which port the cable is connected, and what is the baud rate and parity, stop bit, and all. Rest of the things you can keep it as it is. So this is how we configure the CDR. So whenever you start the interface, you can see there is a CDR interface also will be running. That is not part of the interface. So it will be trying to connect that particular IP and port we define. You see here. Here we can see all the record related to the call details basically. So it will be a raw format it will get. Then what it does, the SmartL interface will process that call based on the device type, message, and all. So it's clear how to enable the CDR?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So these are the configuration related to the CDR. Now going back to the folder structure. So when you go to interface, logs I told, all the things related to logs will be there. Now there's a main folder. Usually you don't need to change anything. These are the RPTs, all this stuff related to the reports and all will be there. And the MDB plus, that is we use to open the database. Then SA client does not matter. It's a alert. Then there is a support folder. We keep support related things like original MDB. If any DLL we are replacing, I used to take a backup to this folder, all this stuff. So these are the things. Then the PMS is important. There is a couple of EXE also will be there. So it's clear about the data structure.
Yeah.
Okay. So now when you go back to SmartL Manager, so you can see yesterday we talked about the call accounting part, right? So when you call accounting part, there is one thing I missed yesterday. There is an option called other options. So in other option, there are many things are there like related to the configuration. One is if you go to general, you can mark what kind of calls you want to log it. Okay. So outgoing, incoming, internal. So we can define whether you want to log only outgoing call, you can uncheck these things, incoming and internal. Next is others, check for duplicate calls. Some CDR, some PBX, what does it do is they may sending the same string couple of times. So if you start recording every string, it will be a duplicate call record in the system. So system will internally validate. If you enable this one, whenever it receives a string, it will validate the same kind of record is we have captured before. If it is captured, it will ignore it. So it's better to always enable check for duplicate calls in all the site. So then default rate time. So you can define what is the default rate time you have to use here. It's a 1 minute or a default, whatever it is, you can define. Then the valid call. So for example, some lot of PABX, they send a lot of junk data. Like maybe some calls, it's actually not a call, but they send a record to us. So we usually get some records from the PABX. Duration is more than 24 hours, 48 hours duration. That is, there's no chance somebody speak continuously 48 hours. So we always put validate the call only less than certain hours. Pulse, it does not matter nowadays. And dial number. Some PABX send some junk call details like a 3-digit number, 4-digit number as dial number. That may not be a valid call. To avoid that one, so we usually put the dial number should be greater than certain number. Then only system will calculate the call charges to avoid the junk call posting to the PMS end. For example, in India, a valid call should be at least landline should be a 9-digit, I think, right? 9 or 8-digit.
So landline can be 5-6 digits.
Yeah, so we can put 5, so it won't detect any calls coming less than that digit, basically.
And what about that emergency call? That 3-digit and 4-digit, like 100 for
then we cannot put this one. Then we cannot put this one. And we have to reduce it. Next is charge. So basically we can define the currency format. Always keep the method 3. Okay, charge code, based on what department for unknown calls we have to charge. And there's an option calculate call charge. This should be always enabled. So send discount and all we never used actually. Next is the important thing, call identifier. Call identifier is, see, PABX will be sending all the call details to us, right? How do we identify whether it's a national call or a local call or a international call? For example, most of the PABX, if it is a local call, they send only the number without a prefix 0. Then we detect it as a local call. In that case, you can remove this one, you can keep it blank. So what happened? Anything without a prefix, it will go as a local call. So now national call, I added a prefix called 0. That means if any call come with a prefix 0, system will consider as a national call. All the mobile call may be coming with a 0 prefix. Or some PABX will be sending with a different prefix. For example, this PABX is sending 980 as the prefix. So in that case, we define 980 as a prefix. So then if it is an international call, most of the PABX send with 00 in the front. So from
like on mobile, we receive the call and we get like country code initial letter. The same way PBX not send?
They usually send the numbers only, the country. For example, if the country code of Delhi is 011, something like that, let's say. So if it is sent it with a 0 in the front, we will detect as a national code.
Okay, means PABX don't send the country code initial.
Yeah. Okay. Then international call also, they will send it with 00, then the country code, then the number actually, most of the PABX. Then we define, this is how we identify the calls basically. Usually by default it will work, but when you see the call details are not recording in the system, the first thing you go to the CDR file and see how the calls are coming. Maybe it's coming without a prefix. The CDR logs, you can always get it from here. If it is not a protocol based, you can go to interface folder and logs. Then there's a folder called raw CDR. Here all the details related to calls will be there. For example, this is the raw CDR we received from one of the PABX. So from here, there are lines, numbers is there, then there are different codes. Maybe it is using for different type of calls. IVOT probably this look like an internal call. and not internal call. So there are codes. We have to identify what it is for and what type the call is made and what is the number it's coming. It's all coming without 0. Then it will record as a local code. If anything come with 00 or 00 plus the country code, we will identify it as international code. Going back to this one, then there is an option called grace period. So what happened in some PABX, they send calls with the junk data. For example, if you dial some number, the call is actually not connected. It only rings, but other party did not attend. But still some PABX, they may sending that call details. So if you want to avoid certain second calls, for example, less than 10-second call to be avoided, so you can define here the duration. So if I put 10 seconds here for national calls, what happened? Any calls come with it less than 10 seconds, it won't record it in the system. Only more than 10 seconds will be recorded in the system. So you can define it for international. Usually we define it 0, but if the client is saying, the calls, it's not connected, but it's still recording. Usually it has to correct from the PABX team. They should have a parity check to, control it. But when we communicate it, they will always deny and all. So it's a workaround solution you can suggest to client to avoid that one. But sometimes they may lose the money also. Maybe it's a valid call, 10 seconds. Then you can define what is a weekend for that particular country, and also it will be report related. Then this is if you look at the SmartL application, there is a globe icon and will show. So this is the image it pickups basically. Then call colors, different kind of calls. What is the colors to be shown in the interface? Then MSI use extension number by default should be there. Then in the day end, you can define what is the purge you have to do it for the calls. So if you keep the entire call details, the database size will be huge. So usually we check with the client and define, how many days you want to keep the outgoing call record. They're saying, okay, I want to keep it for 2 years. Then you can put how many days you want to put it. So after that, it will get purged. Incoming call also, internal, others. You can define the days here, how many days call record we have to keep. Then later on, it will get purged. So this you can consult with client and then language does not matter. You can keep it as it is. So this is related to the call accounting part. Now, when it's come to call accounting report, there are many reports available. I'm not going through it. So there are 2 sections, call. When you go to call, all the call related reports are there. You can take the report. It's basically easy to understand. You can do it yourself. Then there is a checklist related to department, what all department is there, rate is there, holiday is there. So all this masters related report also there. So for example, if you go to a report here in the call register, let's say. So there are different filters. One is the date range. One is you can take it by department. You can take it for a particular extension. Then you can type the extension number here. Or you can take it by category. Category means you can select certain category, like you want only admin code or you want the guest room code. So you can select that also. Then you can take it for room, particular room. You can put the room number and take it. Department also, you can select it for a particular department and select it. Now call type, what all call type you want to show it in the report, whether only outgoing, incoming, internal. And the one important thing is when you are taking incoming, internal, this call will be recorded with 0 charges. So always make sure this show 0 charge is checked when you are especially taking the incoming and internal report. And there are other things also, the trunk number. Nowadays, nobody is using trunk number. So if they have a trunk number, you can filter it by trunk number, or you want to find out from particular number. For example, you want to find out with a particular mobile number who called. So you can put that number and take it. Then charge is greater than certain amount or less than certain, like equal or less than. So like that, many filters you can put it and you can take the report. Also, there's an option called show selected destination. You can select only international calls, local calls, or national calls. So most of the report has same filters, so you can take those report. Clear?
Yeah.
Next thing is the tools. When you go to tools, there is an option. If you want to change the password, you can change the password from here. That user, he logged in. Then operator assistant, yesterday I had nothing to do from here. There is an option compact and repair data from here itself. So you can try that one if you face any issues. Then options. Okay, so options here you can define the this one company name, and basically initially we have to do it through the database because application will not start without a license. So basically these details you are updating from the backend at the first time. But later, if you are changing this one, you can change it from here. But if you are changing, you need to get a new license after changing it. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So now options, then system. Okay. So whenever you did a installation and you may copying the data from some other site sometimes and all. So what happened, there will be a records of that site will be there in the database or logs will be there in the Saturday. So the first thing you have to do is before they are going live, clear the logs. Go to clear log, select every messages here. Okay, and clear it, everything. Also, it is good to replace the devlog and devbuff always when you are doing the first time. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So now next thing is device model. So device model, yesterday I explained all the device we have available in the system is here. So many device you can see it here. So whenever you got a request from for an interface, you can always look at this one and see that interface is available with us or not. If it is available, you can use that one and start the installation. If you have any confusion only, you need to come back to us. Okay. So all the device you can see the model number, what kind of system it is a call accounting system, all these things you can see it from here. Then the communication method and the configuration related to that device. All this stuff you can see it from device mode. Next is the messages. So messages are where the protocol comes. For example, let me take you a FIDM illusion protocol. FIDM illusion is very easy to understand protocol. It's easy to use, easy to understand. So FIDM illusion protocol, if you see here, these are the messages for FIDM illusion protocol. In the bottom, you can see these two arrows. If you want to go to the last message, you can click this one. Want to come to the first message, you can click that. Want to scroll one by one message, you can go here. So let me take a check-in message of this one. Then I'll show you. Okay, for example, this is a message ID 300 we are using to update the check-in details to a FIDAS protocol using products. For example, an HSIA or IPTV or a call accounting or whatever it is. So they want a check-in message in FIAS protocol. We use this message. So FIAS has a, so you can see what kind of message type it is, record type, what it is, then, basically what is the message format. The initial string will be starting with a GI, basically guest in GI, and we are defining here where to start, which line to start, and what is the length of this field. So it's a two characters, so we put 2 basically. This is how the message is configured. And there is something called direction. So this we are using only to send. So means I will get a message from Wishnet or some other device at your wish or some other system maybe, and I will use this. I will use that message and convert this into this format and send to the third party device. If it is receive means we are receiving from a third party or a Wishnet, any device we are receiving. So direction will be there. So there is a settings called ICM. ICM, it's very important. So it's we always put any use ICM number. That means it does not matter what kind of communication. It's a serial or it is through IP. It always use the ICM we define in the INI. But some cases, what happens? Some message only support in serial port cannot be used in a TCP/IP method. So in that case, we define what is the ICM number, whether it's a serial or it is a database related. So it won't go for another messages and another communication method. Then if you look at the FIAS messages, they will have a field separator always with a pipe, all the messages. Let me see if I have a log of freedom illusion here. Let me explain. CPI. Let me take this, so I'll explain you how does it the FIAS work. Got the log, right? So here is the log. So in the log, it's showing basically what time, what date, what time, what message is sent. So it's showing there is a GI message is sent. GI is a check-in message, which RN is the room number, G this is the guest ID, and what is the guest name, and what is the guest language defined in the system. GS is, I have to check in the protocol document what it is. Then guest arrival and guest departure, then NP, no post N. So we send these details to this third party interface basically. Now that third party interface is saying, okay, no, I didn't receive the check-in message. So you can always go to the log and find out whether we send it or not. Maybe if we send, but maybe there is an error in their end, so they could not accept it. Maybe they required some modification in the string. For example, they don't accept the language EA. They may be required some other codes. Then we need to modify it. Okay. Then there is a RE record. The RE is basically a extended message. So for example, if the some kind of strings are enabled. For example, in Wishnet, you made it as cache only. Then we send the RE record to make it as call posting disabled. CS is the call, what was it? Don't remember now. Call. I forgot that one. CS is the one where we control the line barring basically. So for example, if you put it as no post Y in Wishnet, we have to send to the PABX that this all close all the lines. So CS1 will be used to open line and CS3 will be used to close the line. So I will share the FIAS protocol document also with all of you. So it's very easy to study it. So if you spend some time, you go through the messages, you will understand it. It's very easy to. Then PS is a posting message. Usually guest in this and all, we don't get an acknowledgement from FIAS protocol. But when there is a posting, we get an acknowledgement. So for example, here it is a posting. So we send the posting amount, total amount is 2 rupees, date, time, duration of the call, what kind of call, all these details we send to the FIAS based interface. Then we got an acknowledgement from that, it's accepted and the status is okay. These are the reference number, posting successful. So if the customer is saying the call is not posted, first thing you check in the log, in the system call is recorded in the SmartL or not. If it is recorded, you go to the interface part, check whether we posted to the PMS or not. If it is posting to the PMS, you can see if there is any error, you can see it in the log. So you can identify what is the issue easily. And coming back to the message section, for example, here you see we put guest name and guest first name, correct? So some customer is saying or some third party is saying, okay, I want the guest last name. Instead of first name, I want the last name in the GF position. So what you can do is you can modify from there. So you can easily modify to guest last name. So I change to guest last name. So like that, you can switch the fields from here very easily. But when you are switching, after you modify, copy the dev says, keep it in your archive folder. Sometimes the system crashes, they will ask you to reinstall the application. That time you have to go through all this exercise again if you are modifying some messages. So better you create an FTP folder in some of your server. All the site dev says you always copy and keep it with you. So in case of the system crashes, you can use it if you are modifying anything at the site. So this is how you modify the messages. So messages section is there. What is the field ID? What could be the prefix? Which line it start? What could be the length? And there are format values. So there are many things related to the message is there. I don't think you will able to capture it immediately, but eventually you will able to. If you ask me a question, what it is, I will able to answer instead of we dig into everything now. So if any problem you face, I will tell you where to modify it, or Goldie will tell you, or John will be telling you, or Rishad will be telling you where to modify, what to modify, all this stuff. So this is how the methods are configured. So basically, so you can see many kind of messages like this in each devices. So these are checkout messages. So in the checkout messages, we send this kind of details. Date, time, cashier, room number, all this. Now let's take a messages of a Wishnet device. Wishnet, let's say message for the PABX. So there is a message for call record for the Wishnet. Let me take a let me take a check-in message of Wishnet. So what does Wishnet do is when there is a check-in, it will create an entry in the interface table in the hotel.db, that interface, smart interface table. It will create an entry. That entry for a check-in message is start with the letter A. So we define, okay, what is the entry? And there is accept record type 55 value should be Y, then only the record will be accept. And which on that entry, which field is the room number, which field is the guest name, and which field is the guest number. This much check-in date, check-out date. This much details we get, but this is not enough for us to send a message to a third-party interface. We may need more information, like maybe we need email address, maybe we need phone number, or maybe we need some other details. So what does it do is, so if you take the dispatch message of Wishnet, there is an internal dispatch also sometimes we configure. For example, I select the from devices Wishnet.
We configure dispatch message for which purpose?
This is how the communication happens between the device, two devices, the dispatch. If you want the communication happens between two different devices, there should be a dispatch message to be defined.
Okay.
Okay, so but sometimes this Wishnet to PABX and Wishnet to PABX, I selected both are same device, correct? It's not a different device I am selected now, but you can see there are many methods mapped here. So we call it internal mapping. So sometimes we do a internal mapping also in the system. What I mapped is, for example, this 300 message comes in, check-in message come. So I told them we have to map it to 301 in the same device. So if I go to messages here, I go to window, I go to the messages. So I got 300. So then what it does is system will send an internal message to 301. What is 300 now? 301 is calling an SP. SprockDB FD03 underscore 04. Then there is a prefix, that is a prefix. Then there is a suffix. Then what it is? Fixed text R. There is a letter R. Then room number. Room number from where it comes? Because we got the room number here, right? We got the room number here. So we map the same thing here. Room number, guest pin. Then there is a fixed test, then sysvar property ID. The property ID will be picking from the INI we defined. So this much details we will put it here and we will run a query in the database, correct? So when you run that query, what happened? Here we define a message here, dependent ID. So what is dependent ID? 302, right? When the result comes, it will be mapping to 302, dependent ID. So this 302 again run a query, select room from this much detail. There is a query here, you see, there is a big query, value 1, value 2, property ID, guest, all this.
So in device model, the 300, after 300, we have to put something else, means the for the next message. Like for check-in, we have defined 300. Then after 300 means all the check-in related setting we need to do over
Usually
here.
you don't need to do anything, okay? Usually you don't need to do anything because it's a certified interface. We have installed in many places, but some cases will come. So for example, when we interface with a HSIA system, they need a separate field that we don't have it now. Maybe we usually send guest name, first name, last name, and probably guest ID, check-in date, check-out date, and all. They said, no, I want the mobile number. So from where do we get the mobile number? We have to modify this query now, the check-in query. So we will modify it, this query, to get the mobile number also in this query.
Okay.
So then here you see 302 message runs. When this query run, we define interpret that data to 303. So what happened? It will, whatever the result coming for this query, it will be putting it into this format 303. So 303, the query output. So starting will be room number. The query is designed in a way that we will get the room number first, guest name first, guest first name first, last name first, guest title, like this. Now you want to get another field. Okay, so what you can do is you can modify this query. What you do is I will get this query first. I will take it to a notepad file. Or you can get this from the log also. When you run the query, you can get it from the log. So if I want to get the actual query, I put this is the query. Then I had to copy this all. That's why Smartel sometimes it takes a lot of time to do. So it's a big query that we used to run to get, see it's saying rtrim title, then guest name, guest first name. So you want to get the mobile number. So you have to modify this query to get the mobile number and put it back. Okay, then you can add the mobile number as a new field here. So for example, let me see, we have mobile number field. We don't have mobile number field, but what you can do is you can put it as a fixed test, maybe field 15 character. So then the 15th position, the 13th position, whatever it is coming in the result set, it will go as mobile number. Okay. So usually you don't need to do this stuff, but you should understand the flow. So then we got the data we need to share with the third party, right? Now when you go to dispatch, here. So I select, okay, which friend of is to a feed emulsion. Okay, so that is a FIAS protocol. So let's say here, refresh. So here you see we are sending 303, the last message. Last message from here 303 we are sending to 300 of FIAS model. FIAS device 300 message we are sending this one. So this is how it works basically. So when you are Wishnet, it's a bit complicated because it does not have any protocol or anything. So we are just running query and taking the data. So when you're adding a modification, a lot of work to do basically. It's not easy to do it. So we get a message 300 first, then we will internally map that to 301. When we run the 301 query, we will put it into 302. Then 302 again another query we will run. Then we will get a result. Then this result will be dispatching to the PABX or whichever device. IPTV,
one,
any system, key card or anything.
One bucket to another bucket to another bucket like this.
Yeah, so like that.
Joining one to another.
So basically this is the concept of the system, how we are getting the messages. Now I'll tell you another case. You want to interface with a let's say to an SMS new SMS vendor. That and all, it's actually very easy to do it. So you will get a interface protocol from that one, right? So for example, route SMS. Okay, so route SMS. So let's go to this device first. Okay, so I go to device model. Okay, so route SMS. So most of the SMS gateway, they support HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, so what you can do is you can take this device and modify it. If it is not route SMS, some other company. Okay, but they have the message format is different. They have a separate. It's very easy to understandable message. Usually the this one. So we put it here HTTP and file is there. So usually we need only HTTP. So the method is HTTP. Then the configuration, if you go here, you can see there is a section called user ID and password. So most of the SMS gateway, they need an authentication. They will share a customer specific user ID and password. So first thing you have to put that user ID and password here. Then where you define the configuration settings, OTH, TTP, right? So you go to the INI and search for this one, OTH. So I'm in the last. Okay. OTH 30. This one. For example, OTH HTTP. So they will share a URL with you, right? This will be the API URL you have to call to send the SMS, for example. Any SMS provider, they will have a URL to call. Then after the URL, you need to put a certain format message. So first thing we will put their URL here. So then they will have a format. For example, if you go to this particular device, route SMS. So after that URL, we need to put a slash, then bulk SMS slash, then bulk SMS, then there is a question mark. Okay. Then we need to add some fields after this one. For example, username. So we pick up the username from where we define the device model. We already defined the user ID and password, right? So we can pick it from there. Or you can add code also. You can put it as a fixed text. You can put it as a fixed text. Depends on the character you can put it. Then you can define the value you can define. Or you can put, like, let's pick up from the system configuration also. sysvar character password. Then after that we need a password, right? So there is a prefix for them to put the password. Then fixed test type, fixed test DLR. I don't know what it is. Then destination. So destination is basically the mobile number. So we can map that mobile number in the Wishnet into field 15 character. Then we can map the same here. So we got the destination. Then the source maybe there is a code. Then the field variable string. So you can take one of the existing SMS device. You can modify basically. So you just understand it, how it works. So basically, if you look at there is an SMS provider. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I have something in my laptop. See, this is not, no, it's not the one. There is. Okay. So this is one of the SMS interface. They want, see, they will give us, this is the format they need. Basically, they will share a HTTP interface document with you. So they will have a URL here, right? This is their URL. Then they will have some custom string. Then we need to have a user ID. Then we need to have a password. Then they will have an ID, separate ID for each customer. So depends on the hotel name or something. Then the mobile number. Then the type of the call, maybe it's always one. Then the text of the message. So this is a test message. So like that, you go back to that device and you can modify it yourself, that message. So the message string may be coming from Wishnet, or message string may be coming from the this one Wishnet. When you are checking in or checking out, guests need a message. So it will be coming in this variable string. So if you know there is an already interface you done with Wishnet and another SMS provider, so it's very easy to do. So you just need to come, if it is a new provider, you just need to modify this message format in their format and save it. That's it. So whenever you did a save in the messages, you have to restart the interface, or there is a refresh button. You have to refresh the interface. Then only it will get applicable. Even if you add any changes you've done in the SmartL manager, if you want to reflect that it in the interface, either you have to restart the interface or there's a refresh button in the bottom. You can use that also. Clear? The message type is clear?
Yes.
Okay, so because we cannot teach you in one day or this one.
Correct.
So what you have to do is when you get a chance, you explore yourself, you try it yourself. Only thing is, whenever you're ready to do a modification on the message or something, go to data folder, select the doses, make a copy of this one before you do any modification. In case something happens, some messages are gone up and down and all, so you can at least revert it back with the old one using doses. So always take the backup of doses before doing any modification. Clear?
Yes.
Now, when it comes to, we have something called mapping. So sometimes we need to do a mapping. For example, let's say take an example of room status. Okay. So when you say room status in Wishnet, the room status is they need some values like CL, vacant, VA, like that we have to use it. But when it comes to PA base, they will be giving us a number. For example, they will say 1 is for vacant, clean, 2 is for vacant, dirty, like that. So we can do some sort of mapping also in the system for that one. It depends on the PABX and the model. So we have different kind of mappings can be done in the system. For example, these are the mappings. Any kind of mapping you can do it from here. So for example, I want to map it for a room status. So I go to room status. Okay, now I select, okay, I'll tell Omni and I want to Vishnet, let's say Vishnet PABX. No mapping defined. Let me see another PABX. Let me see. Yeah, so if you select NEC, you see, so there is a mapping defined here. So for example, NEC will be sending 1 and we are sending CL2 clean to Vishnet. And NEC sending 2, we will be sending DI. Now you are going to implement it in a site that PABX vendor, he defined in a different way. He said, okay, use 5 for cleaning. Then you have to put 5 as cleaning, and DI you will say, DI you put 1. So like that you have to modify it then. So if you are saying the customer is saying, okay, when I'm dialing clean, it is updating something else. So you have to come to this mapping table and see how the mapping is done, and you have to correct it. So for everything, there is a mapping, not only this one, system code. There are other mapping also, like for example, you can map PABX COS. COS is the basically the this one, what do you call type barring, call barring basically. So let's say wish select, let's say NEC, so yes. So for example, you are saying, okay, when it is there is a code we send when there is a Vishnet is blocking the no post, or there is an option in Vishnet also, you can block international, national, local, like, right? So there will be a code coming. So first we have to identify what is the code. Then you put the from code coming from the Vishnet. For example, if Vishnet is sending 1, so probably PABX need it as 2. So like that, you can do any kind of mapping in this also. Next, that is a mapping. So if you go to mapping, there are many related mapping. You can see it from here. Most of the devices you use it, it's always the mapping, everything is done. So you just add the devices, it should work. But usually the challenges we face is the PABX implementation who are doing, they will not have much knowledge about how the interface work. They will have good knowledge about how to configure the PABX, but interface part, they may not have any idea. So sometimes we have to be flexible at our end to modify the messages, modify the things. Maybe it's not our part of job, but we are forced to do sometimes. Next is device type. We defined what kind of device type. This is just a master. Then we have information type. Different kind of, this is using for different messages. So you can see we map it in a table. This is again a master. You don't need to do anything here. ICM, as I told you already, what kind of communication it is using. If it is HTTP, we have to use 10. If it is TCP, we have to use 8. Like different kind of communication method we use. Then ICM, then there's a settings. This also you don't need to touch at all. This one, this is all predefined in the system. Then message type, different kind of messages type we support. Then record type. Okay, so these are the things. Then I told you last time we have a data buffer, right? So we store the data in the buffer. So where you can identify which buffer the data is storing. For example, so if I go to device model, I select, so example Vishnet. Okay. So I select the Vishnet and I go to configuration. Here it's defined which data buffer it's showing. For sending message, it will use the buffer called message send PMS02. Okay. Then receive messages, it will use the message buffer PMS send PMS01. So two buffer it is using. One is for the receiving message, one is for the send message. Okay. So send message, for example, the other interface is down or something happened. You want to see what is the message lying in the buffer. So you can always go here, system, and you can go to data buffer. Okay. Message send, there are many buffers here. So you can choose, okay, PMS01, click OK. Then you can see whether is there any message lying in the buffer or not. So you want to verify it, you can see. Also, when you are doing testing, for example, the other party interface is not ready, but you completed the Wishnet configuration part. So you did the check-in and you can see comments here, the data is populating in the buffer or not. So you can use it for troubleshooting also, the buffer. This is how you use the buffer. Then then there are some reports related to devices. For example, you want to print out a report related to all the devices available in the system. You can see it from here, the list of devices basically. Then system covered report, data buffer, ICM mapping, dispatch, messages, device model, database query. You have an option to edit the PMSI from here also. So instead of going to the PMSI from here, I never used it, but there is an option. So you can edit configuration file. So you can edit it from the application here itself. Instead of doing from the notepad, you can do it from here also. The same INA it will call. Then call simulator options I told you. Advanced alerts. Okay, logs. Logs are a very important thing we always use. Either you can go to the log. So if you go to the log folder, so you can get the raw logs from here. If you go to interface and the logs, so for example, if it is a TCP/IP device, you can see all the logs from here. But the problem is this will be generating by date-wise. Each date-wise. So, for example, if there is a issue happens for guest check-in, then they modify the message, then they say it's not gone. But this event is happening in a 1 week period. So you want to get all the message for that guest. Okay. So for example, I go here in the logs here. Then device messages. So you can select the message device from which device log you want to send. For example, there is a FIDM Illusion device. So I go to FIDM Illusion protocol device. Sorry, logs, FIDM Illusion. Which device it was. So let's say this one itself. No message here, logs. I think I cleared the buffer, so it will not be anything. Okay. So anyway, this is a message. So it will show you all the messages here. For example, you want to search something in this column, what message we send. You can always search using this button and you can type the message, what you want to search it. Maybe the guest name, guest ID or room number. Then you can click find. Then it will show you which message it is. You can click the find next button to continue. And if you want to refresh the log, you can use this button to refresh the logs. So basically it will be showing the logs for last 45 days, logs will be there. So if you want to get the continuous event by event, better you search it from here instead of going by one file there. You can get it like that also, but better to search from here. Then you find out where the issue is. That's how we check the logs, what message we send, what we received. So there is a flow to identify the issue. For example, there is an IPTV vendor. He's saying we are not getting the modification messages from the Wishnet. So what you have to do? First, you have to, from where it is coming. It's coming from the Wishnet, right? So how do we simulate the issue? So first thing is, I do is from where we are getting the message, Wishnet. So right, from Wishnet where the message is populating, it is populating the message in this table with this device code. So what I do, I will switch off my interface, SmartL interface first thing. Then I will do a modification from the Wishnet. I will run this query and SQL and I will see the message is coming in the table or not. So if it is coming in the table, well and good, Wishnet side, everything is okay, correct? Till then, we rectified the issue. If it is not coming, there must be some issue in the Wishnet side. Maybe we didn't enable this device, or maybe there is a bug in the system. Maybe we didn't put the extension number. So some issues will be there related to the Wishnet configuration. That has to be fixed first, right? So this is how we simulate the issue. First, you have to understand from where it is coming and where it is going. So you have to go to the root and start searching from there. Then only you will be able to simulate the issue. Now, if it is coming from the Wishnet, it's fine. So the message is coming. Now, what is the second device? IPTV device. So I go to the logs. So I know, understand, which date, which time the modification happened, right? So I can go to interface and I go to the logs. For example, I go to TCP/IP. I go to that particular day log. I open. Then I search with that guest name or room number. So if it is a FreeDevolution protocol, the message will go with GC. The modification message will go with GC. So I have to see whether this message is going there or not. If it is going, so you can take that log and you can send to that vendor that see we are sending this details to you. Maybe something else is creating problem. Then they will have to check their end and identify what is creating problem. Maybe some field is having problem or the message format is wrong. So they have to tell us what is wrong in the message, why they are not able to accept. Correct? So this is how we simulate the issue. For example, if this message is not going, then there is a problem in our end. We got it from Wishnet, but we are not able to dispatch to them. So the first thing we do is we go to the SmartL manager, then you go to the dispatch, and you will select the from device as Wishnet, which device it is coming. For example, Wishnet PMS for interactive TV. Then I will select FreeDevolution protocol. Then I'll see, is there a modification message mapped here? Yes, it's mapped. So it should not be the issue with the modification message. Maybe something string is wrong. Then we have to go and study these two messages. 323 from the ITV and 320 from this one. So maybe some misconfiguration in the message string. So if you go to many messages, for example, if you go to system device messages for Wishnet, PABX version 4.6. So if you go to many of the messages, for example, I go to 300, the check-in message. Okay, so there is an accept record type is there. Okay, so if any message you are seeing there is an accept report is coming. So what it's saying is in this message coming from Wishnet, in the 55th field, the format should be Y. Then only we will process this record. Otherwise, system will ignore this record. Maybe that Y is not coming in that message. Maybe that will be the issue. That's why it's not processing. So this is how we identify. So you go to this message and compare it with the Wishnet message. Okay, is it started with A in the beginning? Yes, it started with A. The 55th position, Y is coming. You put it in a notepad and see 55th position, Y is coming. Yes, it is coming. Room number is there. No, maybe room number is not there. So that is the issue it's created. Maybe the guest name is not there. So you have to match it with this message first. So then we have to go one by one, identify the issue. So it's not an easy task, I'm saying, but you have to put efforts, try it out, then only you will be able to resolve. So far it's clear? That's how we check the logs, and logs will help you to identify this. Next, there is an error message logs. It will record all the error message related things. For example, one checkout, there is an error. So you can see in this log, is there any error recorded in the system in that particular time? Maybe the connection is closed or something error is, any error, it will show you. Then
Sometime
alert
a
message.
very means a specific error comes like error greater than, less than 1, and this came. What is this error? We just close the smart link, then we open it, and then it error gone. And after 2-3 days again is this.
When there is a error, for example, you see there is an error comes in this time. Okay, you go to error message. So there is an error, invalid procedure or call or argument. Correct? Sure. We don't understand anything from here, right?
Right.
But what we got the date and time when it is happened, and from which device it is happened. That got things we got, right?
Okay.
So now what I do is I go to this device, I go to logs, I go to device messages, and let's say I go to that device, and I can see all the logs from here, right? I go to that particular time and see what message we send at this time, why it's creating problem.
Okay.
So maybe one particular message is creating problem. Then you identify which message is creating problem. Then it's easy for us to also, you at least you identify where the problem is happening. So we can directly look into the issue.
Yeah, so logs, and the first one, which one was the option?
Logs, device messages.
Device messages, yeah.
Messages, error messages, alert messages. Then there is an option interface start end. So it will show you what time the interface is started and what time it is stopped. For example, S means start, what time it is. See, there is a system by default start end is there because I enable the day end. That's why every day it will end it and start it. Correct? But if sometimes user is restarted manually, so you can see when they entered. This is a manual entry with the user SYS. Okay, so you can see if the user is restarted that time, the interface or all this stuff, you can see it from these logs. Then another log is CDR start and end. CDR is this application start and end, this one. So you can see that also from here. Then we have call detail log. This is the call detail record, basically using for all the reports. So basically it is showing what is the date, what is the call date, what is the extension, call type. Call type 1 means outgoing, call type 2 means incoming, call type 3 means internal, means extension to extension calls. And which department it is, what is the room number. If it is not a room number, probably it will be an admin extension, what duration, what is the dial number. So anything related to the call will be there. You can also refer the report, but this is a raw data we store for the report. This is the table we use. So pulse, what charge code it is used, what is the cost, what is the charge, what is the charge by duration and destination, national or international, what code it is. So anything related to the call, if you have any, something to search for, you can search it from. So to verify that is a log. So logs are very important in Smarter. Using that only we can identify and simulate the issues. Understood? Now, another thing is we usually get some issues like we define a port and we give to the customer. They will say, no, I'm not able to connect it. So they don't trust our application. Basically, no, they will blame us. There is some problem with your application. Or we were trying to connect them. So it's a connection is not application. They will simply say, everything is done from our end. You have to check. So what we do is you close our application. So best thing to test is PuTTY. So you do a telnet and test it out. So usually whenever we do an implementation, always we face an issue with the connectivity. Maybe the firewall is blocking, some antivirus is blocking. So these all things will be there. So one thing is whenever you define a port or the other party define a port, you inform the IPTV, the IT vendor that you have to exclude this port in all your firewalls, internal firewalls if it is their Windows firewall, or if you are using a third-party antivirus, you have to exclude it there. Still they are saying oh, everything is done, still it is not communicating. So first thing is you show them in a third-party tool, then only they will believe. Okay, so you go to PuTTY, load PuTTY. Right. PuTTY.exe. It was already done. So the first thing is if you want to check the connectivity, switch off our interface. Make sure our interface is not running. Then we have many options here. How do you want to connect, right? So I use telnet here. Okay, then you can put, for example, the other IP is 192.168, 11 dot, let's say 42, and the port is they're using 80 or some other port. So you open it and see what is happening. Is it connecting? No, it's getting closed. Or some other IP, for example, 192.168, 11.30. Telnet. See, it's trying to connect, but the connection is not established. Like port is getting open, but there's no message from the other party. So this is how we test basically, to the other vendor that communication is not happening. So you have to check from your end, basically. And if we are providing our IP, you can ask them to test it in PuTTY and show us if there is a connectivity error. Then this will be a problem in the firewall or antivirus, all this stuff. So this is where we stuck most of the times, they will say, it is, you see now the connection is timed out. That means the communication is not happening. So this is how we usually do the troubleshooting and testing and all this stuff. Okay. So now when it's come to SmartL, there is one more things also we do. So there is a service also we need to install. Sometimes it depends on what interface basically used. So there is a tool here called a SmartLink service setup. So when you run it, it will ask you to create a path and all. So you always create in this path. See SmartLink, I already installed it. Okay, SmartLink service. So what it does is it will create a services in the Windows. This is we are using to communicate with some other third-party vendors, which we are not able to do it from this is a VB-based program. So we may not able to do it from the SmartLink application. So it uses a latest, infrastructure, all this .NET or something. So we need to communicate with them. So sometimes we need to install SmartLink services. Most of the things the SmartLink will handle. But for example, my cloud PMS. So we need to install the SmartLink services for my cloud PMS to communicate. So in the services, so here, once you install it, it will create a service here, SmartLink. What is it? SmartLink services. So by default, it will be stopped status. You have to double click and change into automatic, basically. Before starting, depends on the interface. There may be some configuration we may require. For example, some PABX also we do interface using this one. For example, Cisco or Avaya IP Office. This and all we are doing the interface using this service, not directly from the SmartLink. So there is a config. It also will have a front end, the latest front end. After you install the application, you have to copy and overwrite this front end basically and their files. After that, there's a exe config file will be there, XML file. So let me open it in a notepad. So basically, we need to define what kind of, there will be many settings. It may be used for different kind of devices at your wish, SMS kind of interface, or many things we use. So main thing is we need to define the device code here, basically, what kind of interface we are using this one. So we will tell you which all kind of interface we need this one. Okay. So for example, MyCloud, if you are using, you need it. Then you need to define the MyCloud device name, which is available in the SmartL Manager here. And then you need to define a message path, receive message path and send message path, basically. Then we need to define what is the MyCloud API URL. So this is the MyCloud API URL. You can always, open and see whether it's accessible from this machine in order to communicate with that API. So you have to define that API. Then probably we need to define the property ID somewhere here. So see the property ID we have to define. Chain ID we are not using anywhere. Property ID we have to define. Then that's it in the INI. Then you can start the service. So what does it do is for MyCloud. So whenever there is a check-in, this API will be constantly, we are maybe calling this API constantly and checking the API. If there is a check-in message, we will call that check-in message API and we will create a file in this folder. IOP, there is a receive and send messages there. In the receive folder, we will create a file. Then what does it do? Our SmartLink application will pick up this file and convert in this to the format other third-party interface required. So basically why we are doing the one interface is on cloud. So we cannot directly access that database or IP port based communication. It's not possible. So it's a API based communication. If it is an API based communication, most of the cases we would require to install this interface. It's very rarely using, but I'll tell you a couple of products it uses. One is MyCloud and one is some of the PABX like Cisco, Avaya IP Office, they will use this one. And some of the SMS service providers, they work in a different protocol, not in HTTP, but they work on different protocol, JSON or something they work. So then we need to use these services to get this interface get done. So this is a new component added in the SmartL for in last maybe 4 or 5 years earlier it is added. So there are many devices now communicating using this one basically.
Basically means we have to communicate to cloud. Cloud.
Most of the cloud-based solution, if you want to communicate, then we probably need a service to be running.
Okay.
API-based products. But if it is on most of the PABX or HSIA system and all, they install a gateway in the on-premise. They will have a server or something in the on-premise basically. So usually they share an IP and port number or a serial cable they share with us. Yes. But nowadays everything is moving to cloud. Even the PABX, some of the PABX, they are on cloud. So we have to switch our interface to an API base. Then we will be using this SmartLink service in moving forward. I think most of the device will be converted to SmartLink service. whichever using an API. Okay, so this is basically overall idea of SmartL. There is another module we have is, see, SmartL is, there are three modules basically: SmartL, Smart Voice, Smart Web. Okay, SmartL we use for call accounting and interface. SmartL, SmartLink basically it's the same. We use the same for interfacing with third-party products or the call accounting system. Now there is something called Smart Voice. Smart Voice is basically using for voicemail. I hope everybody knows what is voicemail, right? India, yes. Maybe some people does not know because I also don't know in 10 years back what is voicemail. So now voicemail is basically whenever you call someone, they were not able to answer the call. The call will be redirected to a voicemail number where you can record a message. You can say, hey, call me back. So he will get a message that, you know, in a normal scenario, in mobile, you will get a message, there is a voicemail for you. So you can listen to that voicemail and delete it, all this stuff. So in a hotel also same thing happens. So what happened? If you call a guest room, the guest is not picked up in a certain range. So the PABX will route that call to our voicemail system, which is Smart Voice.
Yeah, and give the message after a beep, please record your
after
message.
a beep, you can record a message. You record the message, you hang up. So what happened when the guests come back to the room, he will see a telephone. In that telephone, there will be a message lamp will be there. If you go to the hotel room telephone, there will be a message lamp will be there. That will be on. That means there is a message in the lamp. So he can see that message. He click that lamp button, it will dial a number in Smart Voice, and Smart Voice will play that message for him, and it will give them the option to delete that message or not and all. That is basically Smart Voice. So now there are scenarios because the Smart Voice also work based on the guest check-in checkout, because your message should not able to listen by the other guest, right? The next guest who is going to check in this room. So check-in checkout is very important for Smart Voice. So every checkout, we will clear the entire messages in Smart Voice. Delete all the messages for that room, even he read it or not. When you check out, we will delete, or when you do a room transfer, we'll delete that message and put it in the another one. So this is how Smart Voice works. So Smart Voice, not only voicemail, we can do some additional things from using Smart Voice. So what are the additional things we can do using Smart Voice? So for example, when you take a PABX, so PABX will have call accounting system, call detail recording. They will pass that information. So we can do the call recording. So some of the PABX, they support room status change from the telephones. Maybe minibar posting or wake up call. It's all optional. So not all the PABX will have this feature. Okay, some PABX will do, some PABX will not do, some PABX will do one thing, some PABX will do the second thing. So now if the client does not have the PABX who does it, wake up call or room status changes or minibar posting and all, so they can buy our Smart Voice solution. So the Smart Voice solution will give you voicemail feature plus it will give you this one room status change, housekeeping status change basically. Plus we can do minibar posting. Plus we can do wake up call. These 4 features we can deliver through Smart Voice. So earlier days everything was analog. Right? So if you want to communicate with the PABX, what we do, we used to buy a card called a Dialogy card. Okay, so this Dialogy card, we will install it in a PC. It's a PCI based card. We will install it in a PC, and there will be a couple of ports available in that one. So these ports will be a extension number, like your extension number 101, 102, 103. So we ask them to create 6 or 7 extension number for Smart Voice and ask them to provide the cable for that extension number. So we will connect that the font jack you connect the same way. This board we will connect 6 or 7 lines, extension lines. Then we will use this line to, to do the voicemail recording or voicemail retrieving, minibar posting. All this we will do through these particular lines, basically. So now what is happened? Now nobody is using analog. There is a protocol called SIP protocol. It's widely used in all the PABX solution nowadays. Most of the PABX support now SIP. If the hotel is very old, they didn't upgrade their PABX, they may not have this SIP feature. So the SIP is a software-based protocol. So we don't need any hardware to do the voicemail now. So what we use this protocol to communicate with PABX, and we will establish a trunk line with the PABX. And the same way, they will define some sort of 4 or 5 extension number, SIP extensions they define in the PABX. We will define that same extension in our voicemail system. Maybe there is a password for each extension, so we have to define it. So using SIP, we will able to do the voicemail system. That is entirely different thing.
Sarun, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. Like the protocol you were showing now, I think your screen is freezed.
No, I didn't show. I'm not showing anything. I'm just talking.
Okay.
He's
sorry.
just telling. He's just telling about the SIP.
So
Just telling,
that,
because smart voice, maybe later we can conduct a separate session. I'm just giving an introduction what we have smart voice. Okay, so I think it's a very rare site in India smart voice is installed, but here we have many of the site everywhere Smartel is there. Most of the places smart voice also there. Even in Mauritius, Constance, all the site we install smart voice also.
I think we have one in Nepal, right?
Yeah.
that is the Radisson Kathmandu. That's it.
We have one.
So this is basically an idea for Smartel. Now I would really appreciate you guys to do some efforts on this one, because you may I feel sometimes I'm arrogant when I talk to you guys, because the issue I have is we don't have people here. When you suddenly come up with an issue, I'm not able to check because I have other 10 things in my hand. For my answer,
We understand that, Tarun. We
so
understand.
I'm so sorry if I behave in that way, nothing mean, but this is what happening nowadays.
So the idea behind this session, organizing the session, Tarun, was that what you expect from us at the first level of diagnosis, at least that we do, and whenever we come to you, we come prepared. So
Yes.
whether it is installation, whether it is a diagnosis related, we should know about this.
Yes, that would be great. So eventually you will learn. But if we are doing connecting and doing checking, verifying logs, everything from our end, you are never going to learn it. So now you at least start. I'm not saying you are going to do it immediately, but eventually, as of now, you will be able to at least check the logs.
Definitely.
Then I can tell you what is the next step. Maybe we can conduct a couple of follow-up sessions for the training in the coming months. Clarify your doubts. You keep up, or you come up with your questions whenever in Skype or something. You come up with your question how to do it, how to do these things. So you all guys install Smartel in your machine and see what are the options there. Not only your points. And when you have time, you come call us and clarify the doubts. So eventually you will be able to handle it from
right.
there.
Also share us the latest setup of a SmartLink and SmartTech both.
Yeah, so I will build a full set for you with the latest device, everything, including the license application that there. So all the future installation, you can take that device and use it.
I think a SmartLink has also the two setup. No, one is normal database setup and one is that for the XML.
SmartLink for the you are saying this one, right?
Opera
interface.
Right.
Yeah, that you keep the separate set because it's a different set it is. So you can use that set for all the XML related things. Moving forward, I think we will only opt XML based interface in Stoche and Opera.
Okay, so
it has
you will
many
be sharing the
features.
links also, right?
Sorry?
The recorded sessions link, please, for us.
Yeah, I will download the session because I will not able to share it directly from here. I'll download and put it in some site and I'll send you the download link. So you can keep it in your account.
Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you very much, Tarun, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
sir.
I hope everybody's doubt is clear, I believe.
As of now,
Great.
I think the first level of diagnosis can be done
Good.
regarding the smart link and smart tail, whatever it is.
Perfect.
Yeah, regarding the smart voice and all, but it's still what Sarun has told at the start. Let me just check with Kathmandu. I'll just check.
Mhm. All right then.
Okay then, guys.
Thank
And
you.
also remember to
Thank you.
send us the latest like set.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Smart link.
sure. I will
Yeah.
send the latest.
You will.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.